Inside of ZBrushCore, there are two main types of models to sculpt on. You have subdivision models and you have DynaMesh models. To start off, I just have ZBrushCore loaded up, and I have two dogs here in the scene. The blue dog is a subdivided model. So if I have the blue dog selected, I can go to the Geometry tab over here, and you'll see he consists of 3 subdivisions. So I can scroll up and down his subdivisions here to get the lower resolution version of the dog, or the higher resolution of the dog. The red dog is a DynaMesh dog. So this dog consists entirely of ZBrush's digital clay. So the DynaMesh lives in the Geometry tab underneath the DynaMesh area. And in here you can see this dog has DynaMesh active and it has a resolution of 512. So both types of models here are going to allow you to achieve a sculptural result inside of ZBrushCore. There are some things you can't do with subdivided models that you can do with DynaMesh. And then there are some things you can't do with a DynaMesh model, but you can do with a subdivided model. So to start off, let's just look at the subdivided model. So let's say with the dog here, I want to start pulling some shapes off the back of the model here. So I go down the bottom here and select the Move brush, and then come across the model and hold down S to get a larger draw size here. And then I'm just going to start pulling his back out a little bit. So something like this. Now you'll notice that I'm getting this stretching now with the mesh, since I'm pulling the topology of the model up. So if I was to come back through on the blue dog here and select the Clay Tubes brush, select a small draw size here, and then sculpt from the dog's neck to the back here, you're going to see that stroke is going to depreciate. And this is because when I started pulling the surface of this model out, I've stretched the polygons that make up the model. Now with a subdivided model, you could come in and attempt to smooth this out to get a smoother surface, but you're restricted to how many polygons are in that area. So you could come to the Geometry tab and divide this up again to increase the resolution of your mesh. And this will then come through and start smoothing out that area. However, when you do this, you're going to increase your polygon count. So if you start making large changes to a subdivided model, you're going to have to divide the model quite a bit to increase the topology in those areas to allow you to sculpt. Now if I go to the DynaMesh dog here and I do that same process, so I'm just going to come to his back and I'm just going to start pulling his back out. Now, as you see, when I start getting to those stretched areas like this, I can simply just hold Control and drag off the model and release, and it's going to re-DynaMesh that mesh. And this is now going to give me even topology across that surface. So I could come in with a small draw size, the smooth brush, and the clay buildup brush, and get a consistent stroke all the way. So DynaMesh's main function is to generate forms and silhouettes on your model. If you already have an established silhouette, you can simply bring that into ZBrush and then subdivide it and sculpt on it like the blue dog. Another option that the DynaMesh model will allow, but a subdivision model will not, is the ability to use insert mesh brushes. So if I come down here and select this IMM primitives brush, and I come across the DynaMesh dog here and drag this out, I'm going to be able to insert these shapes. If I select the blue dog and I come across and try to drag an insert mesh brush out, I'm going to get a warning that the mesh is composed of multiple subdivisions. So you're either going to have to delete the subdivisions on this model to use insert mesh primitives, or convert this model to a DynaMesh. Another thing that DynaMesh does that a subdivided model will not, it has the ability to fuse. So with my dog here and those insert mesh objects, if I re-DynaMesh this mesh now, it's going to take those insert mesh objects and it's going to weld it to the surface of the dog. So if I smooth these out, you can see they are fully attached. If I was to take a primitive and append it to the subdivision dog and that primitive would remain separate geometry islands. Another positive of a subdivision model is that you can always switch down to a lower subdivision level. So if I go back to the blue dog here and I switch down to subdivision level 1, I can use things like the Move brush now to move areas on the model here slightly to change its shape. As you can see, since the model consists of lower resolution geometry, I can easily make these changes here. So I can make his neck a little wider very easily. If I go back to the DynaMesh version of the dog here, since this model contains a lot of polygons to handle sculpting, if I come through and try to manipulate the neck here and make it larger, it's going to take a lot longer because I'm dealing with a lot more polygons in this area. I'm also not going to get as clean of a result because I'm affecting very tiny areas of the model with the Move brush. So you can see compared to the DynaMesh model when I did this move, I'm moving larger chunks of the mesh here, keeping that thick shape and some of the other sculpting details. After you've made these changes to the lower subdivision, you can always come back over here and scrub up to the higher subdivision level and see those changes affected on the entire dog. There is no wrong type of model to use while you're inside of ZBrushCore. The general principle is that if you want to establish a silhouette or a form on your mesh, you would start by using DynaMesh. After you have your DynaMesh model built out to a certain form, you can then convert it to a subdivision model to allow you to further divide it up to add sculptural details, and this will allow you that flexibility of going back down to a lower subdivision to change shapes in certain areas. So experiment with both types of models inside of ZBrushCore to find out which type fits your workflow.